Honored to be with you tonight. Subscribe to the podcast. As always, you can email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyoakeshow.com. Look, it's this situation that we have going on in California is quite phenomenal in what we're witnessing. Now, we're not sort of going to push a very sort of, a message that is a little overly optimistic. But many are saying we got to clean up the voter rolls. Many are saying a lot of other different things, but I think we need to go even further. We need to make California too big to rig. No more mail-in voting. We need to take advantage of the time off of work to go vote in person and voter ID. California has still yet to count all the votes. And if mailed, dated by June 2nd, the votes are still to be counted. A little bit later in the program, we're going to be going over this sort of loophole on how California is still able to do this. And it's causing the slow, very slow count of what we're witnessing today. So we're going to be going over that later. That is being utilized to validate mail-in ballots. But as the governor race tightens, AP calls the race for Steve Hilton to advance in a head-to-head in the general election. So these are the California primary election results. They just named Steve Hilton as the secondary candidate to lead, but there's still 91% of the votes. And seemingly so, Steve Hilton is just about 3.5 points below. Tom Steyer is below Steve Hilton by 3.5 points. Now, all this is leading up to what we're going to see in the general elections. Everybody is talking about this. And so we're looking at issues such as Gloria Romero for lieutenant governor, who's just about a point under Fiona. We have Rob Bonta, who's got a significant lead over Michael Gates. And of course, Spencer Pratt. And there's a bombshell new report from the New York Post we're going to look at regarding Nithya Raman. Somebody we'd never heard before at all up until now. She's a national name. And so the latest drops here were 95% of the votes in for the mayoral candidates. I mean, how accurate are these numbers? But she was far below. You can go back to our previous broadcasts. She was far below Spencer Pratt. And it seemed as though Spencer Pratt was going to go head to head along with Karen Bass. He was looking to contend with her in the midterms. But as ballot drops came in, Pratt quickly lost the lead over Raman. Again, a Democratic socialist, she was good, or rather she was, and still is, a complete nobody, who is now seemingly gaining national attention. Again, not for a good reason. So, however, I think Los Angelinos want change, but they aren't willing to look at another party for said change. They are beholden, subservient to a beast, the Leviathan. It tickles their ears. It fancies them in all the right places. Homelessness will be fixed. California will be affordable. We'll put you first over ourselves. But cut the crap. You have the power, and yet nothing will change even when you assume office. This is true for both Karen Bass and now Nithya Raman. But the Nithya Raman case is quite perplexing. She seemingly conceded the race up until she surpassed Pratt by a full 3.5 points. The same Raman who is linked to homeless LA voters. We're going to be looking at this report in a moment, but let me show you this clip here of Raman who is conceding this election. I mean, it's quite fascinating when you look at the evidence here as to what could be happening. Let's just play this clip and maybe it'll open your eyes to maybe something is going on here. Something that we knew was going on from the very beginning. People are saying, I think they're downplaying it, but they're saying it's not, there's no fraud here. Let's take a look.
I hope you know that everything every person in this room is fighting for in this campaign has been about building a city that's worthy of you and every child in this city. I hope you.
So, what went wrong? Or rather, what went right? Wow, what a tongue twister. What went right for Nithya Raman? And so, we see quite the evidence as to how fast she progressed. And we have Robbie Starbuck, who's saying Spencer Pratt is likely to be overtaken by the far-left Nithya Raman today. That was June 7th. This graph shows the count on election day through last night. Nithya did this suddenly. Nithya did this by suddenly winning first in every new ballot drop. Percentages were high. North Korean elections have more self-respect. Even they'd find it absurd for third to suddenly jump to first place in every ballot drop days after an election. It's just ludicrous. Now, this isn't Mario Kart where you can suddenly throw a bunch of red shells to overtake the person ahead of you, but this is what is seemingly, I don't know why I'm making that analogy, but this is how the count is moving. These are the updates here. You see that Nithya Raman, who is on a huge trajectory, which eventually surpassed Spencer Pratt, who is said to leave California if indeed he is not moving forward. And rightly so. I would imagine how frustrating this is for him. And so these are the results. But why is it that this went in this direction? Well, as we said before earlier, for those that are just joining in, Steve Hilton now meets with Javier Becerra as the contender for the gubernatorial position. And so going over this Nithya Raman case, this person that we didn't even know about, she's become a national phenomenon. Suddenly, a bombshell photo unveils damning Nithya Raman linked with homeless voters as fury erupts over LA ballot count. Thousands of voters were registered to vote at LA shelters despite many not living there or the facilities not having any beds. And as Spencer Pratt was eliminated by Nithya Raman, the mayor's race on Monday night says it can be revealed that one drop-in center that received 600,000 from the socialist candidate had 185 registered voters at the address, but offers no accommodations. The revelations have prompted U.S. Attorney Bill Essayli to say he will investigate the concerns uncovered by the Post and follow the evidence to see if the law has been broken. A review of records shows 7,600 voters tied to homeless shelters and service providers. Now, this isn't sort of a case that is like, well, it's speculation. We don't really know what's happening. But indeed, this is actually true. They've convicted, I should say, a woman who was accused of registering homeless people, paying them money, some $2, some $5, some $10. This is quite interesting, the linkage here. Now, something was going on, seemingly looking like she was conceding to the race that Spencer Pratt was going to be the second candidate to move forward. However, maybe the homeless votes came through, the unclean voter rolls came through, and the ballot dumps were in favor of Nithya Raman. They were hiding somewhere. Well, let's take a look.
We have multiple investigations open into potential fraud having to do with the election, the ballots, registrations, etc. We announced one case a month ago of a lady that was registering homeless people to vote and paying them to sign false information on voter registration forms. She's since been charged and pled guilty. We have other active investigations ongoing. We can't discuss the specifics of them. But in addition to that, we've called on the state of California to open up their voter rolls. There's a lot of distrust in the way California holds elections, and we believe the best way to handle that is through transparency and through complying with federal law by allowing the federal government to audit the rolls of California.
Now, they're not allowing the federal government to audit any of these rolls. They want to keep it on tight lockdown. They're not going to be open about this. And so this is what the left is saying. This is what they're discussing concerning this issue. Spencer Pratt not advancing, and how this is, every second that goes by brings about a mile of conspiracies. Well, there wouldn't be any conspiracies, as they say later on, if there was a very clean way of doing this, to leave no room for cracks, no room for leakage when it comes to the potential for fraud. So, this is what they're saying.
And it feels like every second that goes by, another mile of conspiracy forms here. Does it seem like the distrust that we're starting to see here in California is causing concern among local and statewide leaders?
I think what we're seeing from Democratic lawmakers in this state, and Democrats in general right now, is a concern that this is setting the stage for what's to come in November. California is going to have some very hotly contested House races, and we are already seeing some Republicans, starting with the president, sowing doubt into how elections are run here. There has been discussion, bipartisan discussion, though, over the past several days about potentially trying to figure out ways to speed up the process, because even if there isn't fraud, people are saying, okay, it's 2026. Does it need to take this long? It has opened the door to the perception of fraud. Here is what Republican political strategist Rob Stutzman told me. He is someone who worked for Schwarzenegger. He helped Schwarzenegger get elected in the recall election several years ago, knows the state very well. Take a listen.
So California could go a long way towards squelching the conspiracies if they had a much more efficient system. But at the end of the day, there's no evidence of fraud or fraud of any magnitude that's actually going to swing the election. And if Karen Bass was rigging this election, she'd let Spencer Pratt finish second. She'd much rather face him than Raman in November.
Yeah, that's where the conspiracy goes and kind of hits somewhat of a dead end, right?
Right, because we have these polls from the Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies that came out actually showing that if Karen Bass was going up against Spencer Pratt, she would win in a landslide. Here you can see she'd win in a landslide by like 18 points. But now going up against Nithya Raman, this shows that she's going to have a much harder fight. In fact, this shows Nithya Raman pulling ahead in that poll. That would happen before we got these results, but it just shows you that one of the ways that Democrats are pushing back on these claims is saying, come on, if it was rigged, she would have wanted to face Spencer Pratt. And we say that, of course, because LA is such a heavily blue city, Democrat.
But if we're going to be honest here, this is not the conspiracy. That if, somehow they were able to pick and choose their candidate, their opposition, it would be either Nithya Raman or Spencer Pratt. They would choose Spencer Pratt so that she could win, Karen Bass, that is. That is not the conspiracy. The conspiracy is the way that California is handling this election. In many other elections, they allowed for this by the code, a specific code, as we're going to go over in a moment, 3020B in the California Elections Code. Okay, if the ballot has no postmark, a postmark with no date, or an illegible postmark, and no other information available from the United States Postal Service or bona fide private mail delivery company to indicate the date on which the ballot was mailed. The vote by mail ballot identification envelope is dated, stamped by the elections official upon receipt of the vote by mail ballot from the United States Postal Service or a bona fide private mail delivery company, and is signed and dated pursuant to Section 3011 on or before Election Day. You could simply just write in a date. I mean, that's really all it is. So whistleblowers from the USPS were discussing with Steve Hilton this matter. They could still accept these votes even after the fact. But if you kept it the way that it was, you would still see Spencer Pratt in the running for the LA mayoral race. And of course, they would have called it immediately when Steve Hilton was at the top. Quickly, we saw Tom Steyer just surpassing, or at least seemingly to catch up, rather, I should say. And so Brenda is the woman. So we see that the news is, of course, covering this issue. James O'Keefe, who was discussing this, for those who say there was no election fraud in California, the DOJ just prosecuted Brenda Brown for paying homeless people to register to vote under false addresses. Well, here's the video. Here's the evidence. You follow the evidence. See where it leads. And this is where it takes us. But what is really going on behind the scenes that we don't know about? Okay, so we're going to go over this.
Professional signature collector who agreed to plead guilty to paying homeless people to register to vote in Los Angeles. Brenda Lee Brown Armstrong admitted she used to pay people on Skid Row $2 or $3 to sign ballot initiative petitions and gave homeless people her address to use so they could register to vote.
Yes, it does. Now, because you haven't registered, I need to register you so I can get paid too. I'm paying you guys, I need to get paid. Come on.
Armstrong got paid for every signature she got, and the DOJ says this case is just the tip of the iceberg.
This case is important because it shows how easy it is under California law to corrupt the state's voter rolls and thereby corrupt the state and federal elections administered by the state.
So this is, again, national news here. You're looking at people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, even Gavin Newsom. Well, Gavin Newsom's quite saying the opposite, but it says, this is from Elon Musk saying, California made it illegal to show or request photo ID to vote. You cannot show your ID even voluntarily. So, what we're hearing is you can register people to vote using gym memberships, employer ID card, credit or debit card, prescription drug label, insurance card. And yet California is blocking federal audit voter rolls. Why is this allowed? And here, meanwhile, you see Gavin Newsom saying Trump says voter fraud should land people in prison. Agreed. And let's start with the politician spreading election lies. As they said in the NBC News skit that we played, it's really merely, it's more of a skit because it's so hilarious how ridiculous they are. And they say there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence, nothing to look at in California. It's all about our democracy, our democracy, our democracy. When you would actually just allow simply voter ID, these sanctuary cities, anybody can vote. They're going to vote Democrat every single time. California just signed a law making it punishable up to 3 years behind bars. More to come. This is Gavin Newsom. Well, we see how capable California is bringing about the break the glass scenario. This is very interesting when you look at all of this issue, that the entire Democrat media machine is going to be in lockstep with Gavin Newsom. They're going to be in lockstep with Becerra. You may seem that if he is moderate now, if come November, again, California voters mess this moment up, if Christians refuse to get involved, what's going to happen? We are going to see a moment of complete and total tyranny under a Becerra administration. It's going to be wicked. And wicked in not a good way. And so, again, you're looking at many who are chiming in on this. Check this out. This is concerning the DOJ and how you can vote, how you can register to vote.
He's saying some first-time voters can register using documents such as gym membership cards, insurance cards, or employee IDs. The Justice Department arguing federal law gives the government authority to inspect voter registration records despite California privacy protections.
California election officials, meanwhile, have defended the system, citing safeguards, including signature matching, ballot tracking, and post-election audits. President Trump also raising election integrity concerns in California during an interview with NBC's Meet the Press.
The election was rigged.
Now, we're going to get to that because I actually want to play the full clip rather than it being chopped up, because this was at the last moment of this interview was very intense. And so you see NBC saying there's no evidence, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. We know how they were trying to rig the elections again. And this is very important. We cannot overlook this. It all looks fishy. It does not pass the smell test. Let's take a listen.
People like you, the fake, dirty press, the crooked press, people like stupid Biden. He's not smart enough to know what's going on, but people that surrounded him, surrounded his beautiful, resolute desk in the Oval Office. What they did to the lives of people, they destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing wrong.
All right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying, but
There's
let me
a
ask
lot
you
of
about
evidence.
Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk
There's
about Todd
tremendous
Blanche.
evidence. There's nothing
Well,
but
it's not been
evidence. The
presented
election
in a
was
court of
rigged.
law.
It was a dirty election.
Mr.
And it's
President,
happening again right now in
never
California.
presented evidence.
It's happening
that the
right
2020
now in
election was
California.
rigged.
Right now, it's look at what's
Where's
happening
the
in
evidence
California.
to that?
It's
The
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in California.
California, no, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days, and they aren't even close to coming up with it.
That's how they count
You know
the
why
votes
they're doing
in
that? Because
California.
they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
All I have to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not
And
evidence.
I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think
and
it's appropriate?
That's how they
that
count the votes in California.
Do you think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a
State
winner?
and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the
crooked.
votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
Let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands. then.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid.
Let's
you play
continue.
right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But Mr. President,
you know why I
you've
got
never
that?
presented
Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence. There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
Your
about
elections
you
in
went
this
to
country,
court.
we're like a third world country.
But, sir,
your elections are crooked, and you're crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked,
Mr.
and so
President-
is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But, Mr. President-
You're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's
He went, he just went for it. And so it's just infuriating because you have Gavin Newsom, who's talking about, I mean, you just look at his X accounts, Trump this, Trump that, Vance this, Vance that, saying that people can't handle the fact that we're counting every single ballot with an absolute, the perfect measuring read. To look at all this data, all these votes, right? And by the way, Sandman, you say, put ice to the polling stations. The only problem is that anybody who's either illegal in this state is just going to utilize mail-in voting. That's just a reality. And so this is why I believe it would be good to have people rather remove mail-in voting and force the people to go into these polling stations. Rather, look, you utilize what California allows for people to take time off of work in order to go and vote. Take advantage, get paid for it. And so, again, not only does Donald Trump chime in on this, J.D. Vance also reacts to this.
Not sure how closely you've been following this. They are still counting the votes. Do you trust this election?
Fundamentally, the problem here with this whole thing is, how is it that you had, Karen Bass was in first place, Spencer Pratt was in second place, and then this other woman was in third place? You would expect these mail-in ballots to kind of meet that same basic pattern where, number one would get the most votes, number two would get the second most votes, and so on. But somehow we find ourselves in a situation where, number one, they're still receiving ballots, not just counting ballots, Jesse, they're still receiving ballots. And number two, the way that they're coming in just so happens to work out such that the Republican is getting kicked out of the final two, so it's a Democrat versus Democrat runoff. That seems pretty shady to me, especially when you add on top of the fact that in California, you are prohibited from asking for somebody's identification before they vote.
We just found out through the U.S. attorney there that you can register to vote with a gym membership card. How ridiculous is that?
Well, and of course, we know that Gold Gym would probably hand out a gym membership to anybody who's willing to pay, including, for example, an illegal alien.
Now, logical views. I want to mention your comment here because you say, look at where you get your news. We've been playing videos from both sides of the aisle, right? You have Fox, which, yes, is somewhat now leaning more conservative, which hasn't been in the past, especially under Joe Biden. And we're looking at other news outlets. We're looking at NBC. We're looking at NTD. We're looking at other outlets that are reporting this because this is an issue that is not just a one-side issue. We're seeing what both people have to say concerning this because this will truly reveal how the other side is feeling. If they're feeling a little giddy, a little happy about this moment, is because they want to make sure that they calm the nerves of people who are saying that, you know what, maybe California and the elections, maybe there's something going on here. Maybe there's something fishy. The news says it's all fine. The news says it's all good. There's nothing to see here. You know what? We're going to continue voting Democrat, and we're going to hope for a different outcome. 100%, they're going to hope for a different outcome. They're going to get the same outcome. It's quite ridiculous. However, I think the best way that you can tackle this issue is to make California too big to rig. And just like Charlie Kirk said it, he talks about in a very specific context concerning Donald Trump about how one person bringing in 10 new voters in the room that he's speaking in could bring about the victory concerning potential election interference. We're looking at a situation in November. Come November midterm elections, this is a situation that we need to really focus in on because you're no longer going to get the split the vote issue here. not two Democrats that you're going to vote to move forward in a primary. It's a Democrat and a Republican. And so with all the votes that will go from Chad to Steve, any of the independents who are voting for Chad or Steve really this really has to be a all-in focus in order to get Steve Hilton past, making it again just the moment of too big to rig. Because if you have all of the Steyer voters go for Javier Becerra, you're looking at a huge advantage over Hilton, because they no longer have to split. Maybe they decided, I'm going to just go with Steyer. I'm going to go with Steyer. I don't know. I was thinking Becerra, but I think I'm going to go with Steyer because I like that he's more inclusive. Some people went with Becerra. They said, you know what? I like Becerra because he's not as radical as Steyer. If you move all of the votes from Steyer now to Becerra, and they say, you know what? We have no chance here. We're going to just go all in with Becerra. You have a huge lead if indeed all those numbers go straight to Becerra. Even Katie Porter, even Matt Mahan, even Antonio. The amount of Democrats that were voting for Betty Yee, Eric Swalwell, despite the fact that these two dropped out. If all of these voters combined go immediately to Becerra, we might not be witnessing a win of the Republican Party. For those who are showing up, for those who are not showing up, rather, I should say. You might be looking at, again, another sweeping, election from the Democratic side where they will come out on top once again. And then we look at, again, the mayoral race with now Nithya Raman and Karen Bass. Now, Karen Bass recently went to Washington, tried to discuss issues and tried to sort of work with the Trump administration. These things were open and public. So she may be more sort of open and willing to, sort of submit if indeed we had a Republican governor like Steve Hilton, submit to the sort of will of the governor in order to make California affordable, in order to make her look good, her image look good. I just don't understand how people can look at LA and see that LA is so glorious, see that Hollywood is so glorious, that is removing all of the jobs from the film industry, from the writers, losing it all to AI generation. There's no solid revenue coming in Hollywood. And you're seeing the numbers at the box office completely be destroyed by YouTubers, independent creators. The numbers, the money, the revenue in the box office is exploding over the revenue from Hollywood's movies, even with top actors. And the sort of culture is shifting here. You're not going to see that under Karen Bass. You're not going to see that under Nithya Raman. They're going to make this even worse for businesses, especially small businesses, and of course, the fact that Californians will continue to tax themselves into oblivion. 100%. California they asked even more, maybe without even knowing it, for an even greater tax increase from 9.75 to 10.25. Go figure. But look, I think this is a sort of encouraging clip if you haven't seen it before. Something that we could do, something that we could talk about, something that we could discuss. This is why we talk about this.
If everyone here just found 10 new voters, that would be 160,000 new voters here in the state of Arizona, nearly 16 times what the ballot shortage was in 2020. You want to make it too big to rig? Let me tell you the open secret of this event. This room can deliver the state of Arizona for Donald J. Trump. This room. All of us together. This room.
I think this is something that we could look forward to concerning November, where we could really see a massive turnaround in California if indeed we get a Republican attorney general, because we need to do the same for Michael Gates. People that I think we need to have, on this show to discuss how, or their ideas, or how we can get them through and push them over the finish line come November. Republicans all across the board. Really turn around California for the better in order to establish a strong economy. Now, going back to the elections code, section 3020, because maybe you don't believe, right? We have the article here. This shows you the rules, the regulations on how you can indeed, and this is from California Public Law, how you can utilize California in order to utilize the system. Vote by mail application, voting procedures. Utilize it to your benefit. You're a candidate. This is what you're going to do. This is the thing you are going to study to pass the test. You call it sort of a voter fraud. Now, indeed, there's voter fraud, but you're looking at ways that California made it possible in order to enable fraud legally. Or rather, shift the votes in favor of the Democrat candidates. Create fail-safes in order to push them through. Keep them in power. Keep the Leviathan running. All vote-by-mail ballots cast under this division shall be received by the election official form whom they were obtained, or by the precinct board no later than the close of the polls on election day, notwithstanding subdivision A. Any vote-by-mail ballot cast under this division shall be timely cast if it is received by the voter's elections official via the United States Postal Service or a bona fide private mail delivery company no later than 7 days after election day, and the following is satisfied. So it all sounds okay, right? They're sort of laying the groundwork, but then you see the ballot is postmarked on or before election day and is time-stamped or date-stamped by a bona fide private mail delivery company, or on or before election day, or it is otherwise indicated by the United States Postal Service or a bona fide private mail delivery company that the ballot was mailed on or before election day. Okay, so far so good. Then you got number 2. If the ballot has no postmark, a postmark with no date, or an illegible postmark, and no other information is available from the United States Postal Service or the bona fide private mail delivery company to indicate on the date on which the ballot was mailed, the vote-by-mail ballot identification envelope is date-stamped by the elections official upon the receipt of the vote-by-mail ballot from the United States Postal Service. So when they receive it and they open up the envelope to find that it is signed and dated pursuant to section 3011 on or before election day. Just get your ballot, write in June 2nd, or you know what, June 1st. I don't want to make it look like last minute. June 1st. Heck, you know what? Let's put it a week prior. Whenever I got it. Put it in, send it in. Bada bing, bada boom. Get all these, send them all out. Because we know that the voter rolls are not clean. Thousands upon thousands of ballots being sent to people who have not lived in these homes for years, 35 plus years in some reports. You go back to Nithya Raman, who was this article here from the New York Post says last week the Post contacted her campaign and the center seeking comment regarding the relationship between the council member and the organization, but has not heard back. However, a photograph showing Raman presenting a check was taken down from its website following our inquiries. This image, of course, somebody who we did not know about, is now in the limelight. This is Nithya Raman. Do we really expect Nithya Raman to do good to the LA, or I should say Los Angelinos? Do we really expect that she will come through and make California affordable? Or rather, make LA affordable? Bring business and small business back to LA? I don't think so. Her democratic socialist policies, her standpoint will destroy the LA economy. And it will not be. I mean, we're going to witness the fall of Hollywood, the fall of LA. Karen Bass, she may keep it as how it is. Nothing's going to change. Nothing new is going to change. Maybe. There's some sort of optimism there. It's very low, but there's some optimism there that something could change if we had a Republican in governor, as a governor. But if Becerra is ruling and reigning over California, you can guarantee there is not going to be any change. It's actually going to get worse. Now, if you had Becerra and Nithya Raman, oh boy, you got big trouble on your hands. I think at that time it is time to flee California, maybe. Given how midterms go. Think about another state. Or a better answer to all of that is that you actually don't flee, but you stay in the fight. Get involved. Get out the vote. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you guys enjoyed or were blessed by anything that we discussed here, please consider subscribing, like the show. Email me your thoughts, freedom@equallyoakeshow.com. God bless you. And I'll see you guys in the next one. We'll be discussing some of the hot information that is coming out with the Iranian conflict and what's happening there. And how this is sort of, I don't know. I just don't understand how there's no common sense with this, that people aren't looking at, they're not remembering. There's a memory hold on this issue. Memory hold on the issue of Iran and the position Democrats held prior to Donald Trump, where his idea of Iran not being, not obtaining nuclear weapons, or I should say not acquiring a nuclear weapon, to not allow Iran to continue enriching uranium at the rate that they were, so that they can build this nuclear arsenal that they wish to build in order to destroy not only Israel, but the West. There's some dangers to this. That the media will tell you this is Donald Trump's idea, and it's a bad one. The Democrat left, of course. However, stay tuned for all that. For all those discussions, please like, share, and subscribe. We'll be on the ball with this, and keep it locked here. California, pray for California, pray for the leaders, and pray for these elections that are still being counted. And it is today's the last day, supposedly. Tomorrow should all be done. Should all be good to go. See you guys in the next one. God bless.